Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of Tryhard Tuesdays, where we learn to try a little bit harder here at .p. I'm your host, the Grand Wazoo, and sitting here with me is a man who needs no introduction because I've given him so many already, and that's Mr. Blue 22. How's it going, dude?
Good. Getting fucking lazy. It's the doctor. The doctor was going straight to your head, man.
Hey, dude. No one talks to me about a doctor addiction, okay? The Dr. Pepper's always been there for me. No one else has really ever been there for me, so I have the doctor to rely on, okay?
God.
We're not going to talk about it.
He's become a character personified in your head now?
Oh, yeah.
What does he look like? What does he look like?
Kind of like Colonel Sanders for some reason. I don't know why.
Racist.
Maybe, I guess. And he's just like, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Triggered me, man.
Some type of... We're talking about Dr. Pepper, everybody. It's like the ad memory has like seeped into my very existence. But that's neither here nor there, Blue. Pretty exciting time to be a Dota fan, isn't it? With Manila Major going on. We've got a fantastic compendium. The group stage is just concluded. I'm sure everyone's gotten some time to let that sink in. And I don't know. It's weird. We're seeing the teams that did very well years ago doing well again. Whereas some other teams that we've grown to rely on in the time that those teams haven't been good are now at the bottom. It's a topsy-turvy time in competitive Dota, wouldn't you say?
I would definitely say so. I say that as I sit here in my bath of your salty tears as Team Secret was knocked down to the lower bracket. So they are one game away from elimination and a potential last place.
I've already thought of a rebuttal since I saw that on Twitter, and that's the Theseus paradox, the ship of Theseus. If all the parts of the ship have been replaced, does it fundamentally remain the same ship? With Secret, like every part is different, but the mast, right? With Puppy, I don't even feel like watching them play is like seeing Secret play anymore. I feel like most of the ship's been replaced, and they're like a completely different team. They don't have the spirit that they once did. I kind of feel that way about RTZ. I don't know. We'll see how they do. But
yeah. We say this as we're. For transparency's sake, we're recording late on Monday night, so the games are actually going on right now. So we may see them make it out of at least the first round of the lower bracket. But it's still so weird to be saying that about a team that was kind of heralded as the quote-unquote all-star team, like the Team Secret of last year almost is what it felt like, because they had so many great players all playing on one squad together. And I understand your point about that, but also, to be fair, they still kept 3 out of the 5 players that they had on the roster that won the Shanghai tournament. I just don't think they've found a style or a groove that kind of fits in all the pieces, and some of those drafts were freaking weird. Like Kunkka mid for Arteezy, like you could tell he was not.
Why are you going to pick that?
And
I think it was Complexity or someone that picked, or maybe Empire that picked Kunkka again. And it's just kind of a weird pick. I wonder if they didn't want to reveal what they'd be picking for him, or something. I don't know. I just can't justify that with so much Dota wisdom and knowledge in the room.
Yeah.
Are they just having a hard time like having that that communication hierarchy? You know what I wonder?
Yeah.
Because it feels like Universe was a pillar of EG in which they all kind of communicated, and it was like open at least for some of those senior guys like Fear and Universe. But with this team, maybe it's just a whole different thing. They don't have that established camaraderie or whatever. I don't know.
I think that's a good point. Not necessarily on what we know, because we really don't know what the communication styles are like and who's kind of really taking point on a lot of this. What we do know is that EE's technically the drafter for them right now, and I'm sure he's under a lot of scrutiny. I'm not sure if that's necessarily internally he would be, but a lot of people in the scene are like, what the hell are these picks? They felt kind of topsy-turvy. It'll be interesting to see if he continues to be their drafter, because they have so many great Dota minds. Like you said, it's great, but it's also a little bit difficult in that you don't have players you have a lot of different type A players, right? There's not a lot of players that on that team, they all have years and years of experience. So it's weird for 4 of them to defer to one at the end of the day. So maybe that can make up an issue, at least early on. They still have a long way to go. And I don't imagine they're going to be breaking the team up after this, even if they, manage to kind of flop and take last place in the tournament.
They, is there time to break between the major and the internationals, kind of like they've done before? With
This is it. No, this is
so
that was the roster lock.
Yeah.
That's why it was so important that they made the change they did, because this is the roster from now until TI6, unless they want to go through the open bracket. I believe that's how that works. I might be totally wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure that's it. That's why it was such a big deal for them to make the moves they did, because it's not like they can tweak the roster anymore from now until August. So we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, it sucks to be a Secret fan right now, but I got to say it sucks almost as much to be an EG fan, because they are struggling as well. I mean, they won a series, but it was against probably the weakest team in the whole tournament in Mineski, and it was just a 2-1, and then they had a pretty good series against LGDA. I saw some of that.
It was a really great series, but
yeah.
And this wasn't a game that you're like, oh, they got decimated. Like EG, where I see Secret, like they have growing pains in all sorts of different directions. It feels like EG's growing pains are ones that'll put them in better shape for the International 6, just because they have all that fundamental positioning there. And Aoi is just, let me say it now, like an incredible fucking carry. And I think he's already shown that in this tournament with his ability to adapt with slight changes. I mean, in one of those LGD games, for instance, he had the foresight to see that he wasn't going to be getting very much farm in his lane, so he went and he built the Yasha first on a Sanjin Yasha, and then got the Sanjin Yasha completed before he went Battle Fury on his Jug. And just like little foresight like that, where he picks up something that'll keep him alive a little longer, compared to what I would do in that position is just like sit with a Perseverance for like 10 minutes, unable to farm. You know what I mean? Like just seeing those type of things made, like just his rotations, his ability to farm is... I think Yowie's going to be a saving grace for them, too, and maybe he'll win the next international with them and get kicked when Arteezy wants to come back, like Kappa. But
it's all very possible. We can't even joke about that anymore. Not with the recent changes on both Secret and EG. But,
I mean, Fear's looking good, too, but Fear's not looking good in the same way. Like, he's more of a background player now. Like, he was never like a super playmaker. He was like a great farmer, but I don't know. They're all in good shape. We'll see. Bulb is like the weak link on the team, but we'll see.
You think that? See, I
definitely
I'm not
know
sure.
that.
I think that the jury's out on that, because I think Bulba has inconsistent performances, but it also might just be that the team itself hasn't completely gelled and figured out the style that they want moving forward, because he was still like a relatively new carry in this meta. Like he's played carry before, yes, but the way he played carry before was so old school, burning style, get all the farm for protect one, and that isn't very popular nowadays. There's a couple teams that still kind of run that strat. I mean, you could even argue that OG runs a similar strat in protecting Miracle and making as much space as possible for him.
Or No Tail.
But No Tail. To me, that's why people, especially the casual Dota fan, loves Miracle and bemoans No Tail as their carry. But they don't realize that No Tail is a guy, he doesn't get nearly as much farm priority as Miracle a lot of the time, because Miracle, they focus getting the farm and experience on, whether it's in the mid role or the carry role. Is that it's all about making sure he gets his items so that late game he can do his 9k MMR things, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really
I
the
feel
only
like
thing I can imagine that has that style.
Have people figured that out about OG? Do you think?
I think they have, but
is
the
that
thing
why
is,
they're not doing so well? Or I mean, they're not.
Well,
they didn't do
enough.
poorly in the stages. I just mean like at the last major. I mean, they won one and then they came back with a weaker performance. Are we going to see a better OG here? You think, just from the
they've
games
had
you
some
saw?
good performances. They took down Na'Vi to win the Dream League Season 5. That was a couple weeks back.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I mean, that's a quality. Obviously, Na'Vi, that's another surprise of the tournament.
Strong team right now. It looks like.
Yeah, so I mean, for OG, they have their own kind of style, and I think they've figured it out, and teams know it. But it's more of, okay, here's our style. It's coming at you. How can you beat it, right? And within that style, they have their own kind of, the picks still have variability in them. They're not a completely predictable draft, but they're predictable in the sense that who's going to get the priority when and where, right? And that's not always the case on other teams. There isn't that kind of protect our one guy style a lot of the time. But it'll be interesting to see if EG adopts that for AUI or if they go to something different. But I think they're still trying to figure out what mold of strategy they want to go with, and the growing pains are there. But you're right. You could see that there's at least a direction they're moving in.
I don't see that direction with Secret. You know what I mean? Because
exactly.
I see not Universe is someone that seems like he's kind of the glue on a team. I don't know. Like I can't ever know this for sure because I've never been on a pro team with Universe, but I just wonder, like with all the egos on that team, like Pylai Dai doesn't seem to have a huge ego or whatever, but I mean I don't really know him. He just seems like he like supports and like that's his thing. He's a good support. Puppy definitely seems to have an ego. With Eternal Envy and Arteezy, it's like it would be hard for anybody to be on that team, I think. And so to not see them like having that direction that EG has when they've had the same time to build the team, just I don't know. I think PPD impresses me more and more as time goes on, but we'll see. We'll see how they do.
Yeah, they're both impressive teams, and the problem is that they, like every player at that level, has to have some kind of ego because it takes that to get to that level, right? You have to have that kind of built in, like I am the best at my position, or I am the best in Dota, to be able to maintain that mentality through losses and stuff like that, right? Like that's what they say about, great athletes. I mean, those are the guys who have the ego to say I'm the best, so I'm going to work at it, because if I work at it more than anyone else, I'm going to be better than them. So it's hard to know who, quote unquote, might have a bigger ego than the other, like you said, because we don't really know the inner workings of the teams. But I think it's just they just don't know they don't have a direction, right? They don't seem to have a plan or direction. So maybe they'll figure it out. We'll see. It was interesting. The boys on Monday were talking about how there was the possibility that the EG or Secret were thinking about they were throwing their group stages so they can start out in the lower bracket because the EG
that is
known
something
for
I
lower bracket
talked about
runs.
with Cyphus. I was like looking at them pick weird things like Kunkka. Do you think they'd ever just like pick that and be like, yeah, we've been throwing all of our time on Kunkka in the group stages to just like throw them away? It was like a half joke me saying it because I thought the EG this conversation, I'll just wind us back a bit. It was all the way back when I met you at TI5 when EG lost that game right before the last game to go into the losers bracket and then come back up. And so I was like, I wonder if they threw because they didn't want to face that team with their best strategies if they knew they were going to face that team as the strongest of the tournament. And it was just kind of a joke. But I don't know. With Secret and that upset there, I mean, it's kind of absurd, right? And so to see them like run a Kunkka mid, like you don't see Kunkka very often, and like you've seen some Kunkka support or whatever, and you've seen some like interesting plays with that stuff, but like he never has been a super viable pick, and he's like kind of jokey pick like Pudge.
And he's
sometimes.
never been an Arteezy hero.
Yeah.
That's the bigger thing to me, is you could see he genuinely just did not look comfortable on the hero. There was a couple combos.
They ran an Ember with him a while ago too, and they do that with him sometimes. I wonder if he's just like filled with hubris, and he's like, give it to me, I'll be fine with him. And it just doesn't work that way. Sure. We all do it, but
that's the thing, is you're like everyone's just trying to kind of guess what the logic behind it was. Whereas at least with some of the EG drafts, you're like, okay, you see there was a purpose here, right? This is a team that's built around ending at the 30-minute mark with a 5-man push, or this is a team that's built around making space for AUI and eventually he'll come online. Like there's at least a motive and a goal, and the lineups for Secret they just didn't have that, right? You couldn't see the picture they were trying to paint with the draft. So it'll be interesting to see how they change that with their best of one against Team Empire. I mean, they could get Drow stratted.
It was
out
Fnatic.
Of the
it was it was Fnatic that picked the Kunkka, and they had this moment where they were or was it picked against Fnatic? Someone was sieging high ground and got like boat comboed to death, and people were wondering if Secret maybe picked it so they could have that high ground hold. And then
Fnatic picked it against VG.
That's right. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe he is a hero. We'll see. But there's so many other heroes you could put like a world class player like Arteezy on.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Like, and that's a hero that like I'm sure even Earthsea would admit to the fact that hero still has kind of a randomness to him. Like if he lands everything properly, it looks amazing and it's super cool. But there's so many other heroes that do some similar things so much more reliably, right? Maybe the range for possibly working out might not be as high, but the variability doesn't seem to be it seems so much higher with Kunkka. Either he's a useless hero or he does amazing, and it feels like there isn't a great in between when he's played in that core position at least.
It's just surprising because I hear
Yeah.
Arteezy make comments like Shadow Fiend isn't a reliable hero, remove his Ags from the game, increases base speed or increases base armor by 1, and it'll be a reliable hero. And then you see him play Kunkka, and you're like, what the? You think your Shadow Fiend, the hero that like made you famous and is still okay in ways, if he's picked as a niche pick, but and like I don't know if you'd ever go Ags on him like if at the pro level or anything. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it increases your souls by like 10 or something. But
yeah, that's a hero that still hasn't been figured out yet. You're right. I would like to see him play just to see how he's played, but I don't know. I feel like that would be like a strat that like OG would try out.
Yeah.
Like they're
But
known for
not secret or EG, or something like that.
Yeah, I've like I feel like that would be a cool little OG pocket strat or like a wings strat that they might try just to experiment a little bit. But the problem is, there's so many, the stakes are so high, you're just not sure if they're comfortable taking that kind of risk on those kind of heroes. And so far, the people that have been doing that, aside from Fnatic, I mean, they've been kind of punished. Secret was punished for their Clinks pick. You saw EE really struggled on Clinks. I think it was game 2 against Na'Vi. It was game 2 Na'Vi with the Kunkka and the Clinks, and it just nothing seems to be working out for them. But long story short, Secret and EG have been the big disappointments. I think Fnatic was a surprise for me just because they've done so well in online tournaments, but they've had terrible showings on LAN. At least recently, and so I was kind of surprised for them to make it out of that group, and for Vichy Gaming, a team that looked really good just a few weeks ago at the what was it, what did they play, the Epicenter?
Oh yeah,
Epicenter or Star League
or Epicenter,
and then, the I League,
the Fence or whatever.
Yeah, they came in first in that, and they looked really good doing that, and they got taken down. They were 4th, and then Fnatic also took down Alliance 2-1, which was surprising to me, just because Fnatic doesn't have the same pedigree that Alliance does. So you figure the LAN experience would come into play, but they took them down. What other things surprised you about the group stages?
I can definitely say Na'Vi, but I think that's on everyone's mind, kind of. There were some things that surprised me pleasantly that I've kind of been expecting for a while, like Liquid coming out, Matumba Man on his Lycan. Like, that's a personal hero of mine that I love is Lycan. So seeing him and several other teams really make Lycan work. I mean, I think EG even ran him on Owie once or something in their games. And
they love those push strats.
Yeah, he's incredibly powerful in this meta for a different reason than he ever was previously. And so to see Matumba Man run him with such finesse, that team just looks really strong. I think they could possibly take the tournament. And
totally.
I think I predicted that. Maybe I didn't. No, it's Gushi who said I should have. We should have. He tweeted at me. But like, the team looks very strong. Like, I wasn't sure if they were going to bust over and like be as strong as they look, but they just seem easy to adapt. They seem unified, and they just seem like a really great team. So that's what surprised me mainly. Vichy Gaming doing poorly was another surprise in a way out of the same group, but I guess that was kind of a lead up for a while. Who we're not talking about.
I mean, our boys, the Suns fanboys, DC.
Yeah, and that's another surprise there. I know Roland and Cyphus are really rooting for them, so we've been watching their games as well.
Yeah, they're fun to watch. I've always liked watching Moo. I love watching his stream as a wannabe offlane role, picker. I loved watching his stream all the time. So, even when he wasn't on, I think when he was just getting started on Archon, I used to watch his stream a lot, and he was just fun to watch. He made a lot of cool plays. He was very farm oriented, especially on that team, just because you could tell he was probably the best player on Archon, and now that he's moved over into a team with so many playmakers, it doesn't feel like he has that same amount of pressure to get the farm going, and he's able to make some more plays on some core heroes. He still has his classic, like, he still plays Doom a ton, which he's always done, and he's had a lot of success on that. But we got to see some Timbersaw out of him, which is really cool. I've been playing a little more Timber, so that's always fun.
Mainly in the mid is where we're seeing the Timber now, which is
Yeah.
very, very cool. By mainly, I mean only. That's the only place I've seen him. But he's an incredible hero. You know, like I feel like the hero was kind of pushed out of mid for a while because there wasn't many trees or something. But it's like he's also a really good one-on-one type hero that can escape to the trees by your tower. You know, like you might not be able to always use them offensively, but in terms of a defense, they're kind of there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's nice to see him rethought. I mean, reactive is such a good ability for, you know, taking damage, and just all of his abilities really do benefit that one-on-one lane scenario. So, yeah, I can't wait to see more. I mean, Sumail ran him in EG, and everyone's kind of has someone who plays him. It feels like now he's just a strong hero. I like him. He's interesting.
I think
to watch.
you have to with
Yeah.
the whole meta shifting towards armlet carriers because the item is so good now. You know, like we're seeing a lot more DKs. We're seeing a lot more. You know, we still see the occasional alchemist picks. Of course, Lifestealer has become a huge part of this meta, so we've been seeing a lot more of him, and not only that, but you know those kind of zoo strats that used to be played a lot by or run a lot by Liquid. Timber's a great person to deal with that deal with that wave clear, right? To push out the waves, deal with the summons and the Enigma, you know, Eidolons and the boars and all that. So it's a really effective hero to counter a lot of the really popular heroes that we're seeing, not only in the pro but also in the pub meta, right?
Yeah, you've had some success with him that I saw the other night. So he can't be that hard, right? No, I'm joking.
Oh my God.
No,
He is a good hero, dude.
Yeah.
That was the pick. I think we picked him I picked him last because I was like, holy shit, they have 4 melee strength heroes. Like this is the pick. You know?
Yeah.
They had like I can't remember who we were playing against. It was like a Pudge, and like did they have Lifestealer? I can't remember, but all I know is we crushed that game. Like absolutely stomped.
How do you feel about Lifestealer against the Timber?
I mean, Lifestealer doesn't want to get kited, and Timber is one of the best heroes to kite someone out. You know, with his Timber chain and all that shit.
Yeah, his only choice is like to run, but I mean, you can still deflect a lot of the damage.
Yeah, you can bait out the rage, and then what? You know, like he just kind of gets kited around. And with, like you said, with the reactive armor change, the buff that was given to that, like, you know, Timbersaw just gets a couple hits on him, and his armor is up by a ton. Like, yeah, I'm constantly sitting on like plus 10 armor, you know, and you know, tons and tons and tons of HP regen. So even if you're trying to right click me down, you're gonna have to burst me. And Lifestealer's not like a really bursty kind of hero unless he has a couple items ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
So I love the Timber Lifestealer matchup.
Yeah, you like to play that matchup. I've just heard some, like, we were talking last night playing a game, and they're like, Lifestealer's a good carry pick against him, and I couldn't really see why, so it's good to get that clarified. Do you know why in these group stages some teams had to play 3 times and other teams only had to play 2? Like, what? Why?
I don't know.
Some, EG played 3 times in their group, whereas
I think
LGD only played twice.
Oh well, yeah. That was what I was kind of going over with you in the pre-show, which is it's a best of 3 series, and if you win the first 2 of those series, so you win 1, right? So LGD played MVP Phoenix, EG played Mineski.
Yeah.
The winner of both those matches goes to the the upper bracket finals, so to speak. So those 2 meet.
Oh, I see now.
If EG lost to LGD, which means LGD won both of their series, which means they move on. So then EG, because they lost, they're now 1-1, and they meet MVP Phoenix, who beat Mineski. So the 1-1 teams, the teams who won a series and lost a series, meet in the final to determine who is the second of the 4 teams to advance to the upper bracket.
Gotcha. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about overall tournament structure, but I see what you mean now.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of strategy to give away before you hit the main event, but I mean, I like that they have that incentive to do better, to not have to show another set or whatever. But what do you think some of these people are going to pull out? Do you have any predictions from the tournament? Who do you think is going to be like really strong hero wise?
I gotta say, well, Lifestealer is just so popular nowadays. It's kind of hard to ignore the hero, but I think I think we're gonna see a lot of I think we're gonna see a lot of Lifestealer. I think Beastmaster is still gonna be massive, but I would also like to see some more Batrider. I think some hard CC, some hard lockdown, some ability to kind of kite out these core tanky heroes. Um, we might see a lot more of. And Batrider is just one of those heroes, that like even if you don't see a ton of him in the smaller tournaments, he just always seems to make an appearance, especially in these land finals, because he's such a comfort pick on so many different teams. Like he's been so synonymous with the meta, with pro meta. I mean, ever since I've started watching it, he's never really
TI2 when people like Alliance and Navi were like. I
or
remember when he was
TI3,
it was first pick, first ban material and stuff like that. Those were good times.
Yeah,
he's just fun to watch.
He's really good,
and I think it's fun for new players to watch because it's pretty obvious why the Mad Rider throwing Molotov cocktails on his back, or like pulling someone away. They understand why that's a bad thing immediately. It's
right.
It's not subtle. It's something that's fun to watch and flashy, and you know why it's bad immediately.
It's a very straightforward visual cue. You're right. Yeah. There's not. I mean, some cues in Dota 2 are not very obvious. But like you said, the Batrider lasso, maybe the Tidehunter Ravage, those are like things that you see them even if you don't know the game. You're like, oh, okay, that was a big deal, right? He did a thing right there.
And that's what makes the game I don't know. It adds like an illustriousness to the game and playing those heroes. At least it did for me as a new player. And this is probably like watching these tournaments take place and getting like a reader on the skill of the teams as we go on. Like it's crazy where they've come from since then. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also crazy how it almost feels like some of these metas can't abide the old way, which is like the Alliance Navi way, with the new way in ways, which is like Secret, EG. You know what I mean? Like, has this meta been a mixture of the olden ways that make these teams strong again, or have they just worked their asses off, or are they just the heroes in meta again? And like, I mean, Navi did well where Alliance didn't, so maybe that defeats my point right there. But I just find it interesting, like
and it's so hard to compare old to new, not only because of the patches and the different changes that have been made to the game. I mean, even though in the last like 6 months or so, 6-7 months, the game has changed incredibly. The map has completely changed. The way you can jungle so many more heroes now that Iron Talon's a thing and there's extra jungle camps and things like that. I think the game has fundamentally changed so much. But it is interesting to your point that there are so many. That you're seeing some picks that come back in ways that we didn't expect. Beastmaster was a hero that was really popular in the older metas, maybe TI1 through TI3, and then he kind of faded away a little bit, became kind of almost a cheese strat you'd see a lot with like Tinker strats in TI4, up through maybe TI5, and then he's kind of come back back into the meta, and that's kind of cool to see because the hero has always been pretty good. It's just a matter of does he fit into a specific set of lineups? And now he does. So, I mean, as a Beastmaster player, I love seeing that. But I don't necessarily know if we can make that kind of like say that, those the days of yore have returned. But it is cool to see bits and pieces of it make a comeback, right?
Yeah,
and to see those
that's
teams
a good way to
and
put
the
it.
brand names make a comeback. Man, I love that Navi's back.
It gives you like nostalgia feelies for your team because like it was Navi and Alliance against each other for a while, you know what I mean? And they were like, they had put in a lot of the work, and now like you see one of those teams like doing really well in groups. It's nice, watching Dendy's Tinker in some of those games was incredible. Like it really was.
That like game 2 against DC was magnificent.
Yeah.
It was so cool to see. I stayed up way too late watching that shit. It was like I like completely destroyed my sleep schedule doing it, but it was like it's just one of those things, like you see a game and this could apply to anything. It could apply to any sport that you're watching, but if you see something and something remarkable is happening, you don't want to turn it off no matter what, right? Like you just have to watch the whole thing. You're like, I'm sorry, I'm just going to sit through and check out everything and take this all in because you don't see a lot of games like that.
that was
Tinker
one of those
can
games.
be,
It was like he's
exactly.
doing it. You know what I mean? Like he was like
And the cool part
doing
is
it.
Tinker games can be really boring at times, like this, because he's really
Not if he's
kinda so
everywhere.
pushy.
Like they'd move the camera and it'd be like, wah, 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 and he'd just be on that creep, like wrecking their whole team and then blinking
Yeah.
out. It's like,
What
what?
I mean is it can be really formulaic in that
Yeah.
you TP, you blink, you march, TP blink, march, TP blink, march for 30 minutes and no one catches him, and they spend, the other team spends 25 minutes trying to catch him out. They're catching up on farm. No one else on the Tinker's team is getting any farm. Like I've seen a lot of those games played out, especially when Tinker was super popular. And this was not one of those. This is one of those games where you had a lot of action going on, a lot of fighting.
He was like the Harlem Globetrotters of tinkering, dude. Like Dendy, he was just like it was crazy. Like you could definitely see that there was years of work and hard practice that went into making him that player. And it's like the world forgot, and he reminded them in that game.
And then on the flip side, you had a faceless void who started the game going like Vanguard, Ringokula, Radiance, and that was working out. That was doing pretty well. I mean, they were, and then they fell behind a little bit. They went down a Rax, and then they came back, took another Rax, and the game kept going and going and going. And eventually, he had to sell his Radiance. He had to go for a refresher. But like as I saw him buying the refresher, I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, hold on, and I'm doing like super basic math. Like, hold on, it costs like 300 some odd mana to do a chrono, and it costs another like 300 mana to do a refresher, and another 300 to do a chrono. It's like he's not going to have enough. Like he's going to have to time walk at some point. And sure enough, he had resolution on DC side of the Void player. He had a mana problem, and he couldn't get off a second chrono, and he ran out of mana often to time walk. But then he caught up on items so much that he would just leave the refresher orb in base, and then he had a Mjolnir. And you're just like, this game is insane. Like he's completely transitioned his entire set of items. He got rid of the Radiance. He got rid of the Vanguard. It's just like the game was just so wonky and topsy turvy. It felt almost like one of those crazy pubs that you wanted to tell your friend about. But it's the best of the best playing it. So I loved that game. I think that was my favorite game of the group series. What about you?
Yeah, I think that was my favorite game to watch. It was a crowd pleaser for sure, and so that doesn't surprise me. But with Na'Vi beating DC 2-0, I mean, these weren't victories where Na'Vi wiped the floor with them. I mean, it was definitely a hard-fought battle, and let's not forget that DC took Wings 2-0, who beat Secret 2-1. So just from that hierarchy, we're seeing that Na'Vi is kind of top dog in their groups, and underneath them is DC and Wings, and maybe even Secrets below that. So it's interesting to see these teams kind of not bring it. You know what I mean? Like you see Wings, this is like one of their first huge LAN experiences, right? They qualified, and they're beating teams like Secret, and it just doesn't seem like that should be possible. But that's the game.
A lot of people hyped up Wings.
Oh, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. It's just like you said, they don't have the pedigree.
They don't have the name brand players, right? Like if you even look at their teams, I mean, I recognize Ice, but only recently that I've seen him. Maybe the last few months I've noticed his play. But I mean, the other guys, Shadow, Blink, Faith, Bland, Innocence. Like
who knows, right?
I don't know those guys, but they've been together for a long time now, relatively speaking. They've been together since TI5. So it's cool to see those kind of players that don't really have the brand names, and they're a team that people were looking out for. They thought Wings was a shoo-in to take the top spot in this group B, and they end up going to the lower bracket against Complexity, which I think it'll be one of the fun matches for us to watch tonight. There's a lot of great matchups. So speaking of which, what do you think your favorite matchups are for kind of going into the group or out of the group stages and into the main event, the double bracket?
I know Liquid and MVP Phoenix are starting like right now. I'd really love to see that game. Hint, hint.
Yeah,
listeners.
I think
like, what's wrong with you, listeners? I could be watching Dota right now. Natus, the Na'Vi versus OG set is going to be cool, and that's going to go tonight as well. And then we're going to get, from what are they going to do 4 upper bracket games, and then are they going to do 2 and 2?
I think
tonight.
They're going to do 2 and 2. Let me pull it up.
I thought they were going to do 2 upper and then 2 lower with Wings and Complexity tonight. Yeah. Because
Yes.
if you're, okay. So we're going to see the Wings and Complexity game and Alliance and Mineski in the lower bracket, I would imagine. I could be wrong there. But I'm definitely looking forward to the Navi and OG game. I love No-Tail, dude. Like, as much as he's seems to not be growing, maybe. I mean, he is, but like his hero pool leaves something to be desired. I don't know. I like him. He's one of my favorite carries.
It's a totally different. Like, it's just so hard to judge because it's a completely different kind of role that he plays.
It's not that farm-oriented greedy carry.
Yeah. So it's really hard to say, oh, he's not playing well or he's playing really well. Because of course, if there's
I think
a guy
not Shanghai. What was it? The Frankfurt Major. He played like only PL gyro or something.
A lot of PL. A lot of gyro, a lot of PL, yeah.
And like he just would rotate where there weren't people and like get the farm he needed and then go with his team. And like you're completely right about that miracle thing. Because like he's their trick player. He's like their guy. So I don't know. It'll be cool to see how they do against Navi. Like because Navi did so well in their group. We'll see.
And not only that, but these guys have played each other a lot lately. Navi and OG have played each other. I mean, like I mentioned, OG took down Navi to win Dream League Season 5 a couple weeks back. In a best-of-5 series, they 3-0'd Navi. And then I think before that, they played each other during another tournament. I want to say it might have been We Play or the Epicenter tournament. I just know these guys have been playing each other a lot. And so it'll be interesting to see if they have their own, when teams play each other a lot, they seem to have their own little miniature meta where they know each other so well, they kind of do these weird next level drafts, or you see picks that you normally wouldn't, or you see heroes that were normally first banned for first pick material, they kind of get ignored in favor of, heroes that the other team really just doesn't want to see because they've seen the team play them really well.
They've scrimmed with them or played enough tournament games.
Or they scrimmed with them. Yeah, exactly. So I'd be really interested to see how that turns out. And like you said, the Liquid MVP one, that's a marquee matchup. I fucking love both these teams. So I really would.
And just
I'd love to
great
see
performances in groups. And these are teams that have been working their asses off. We have Team Liquid, who you and I love from our StarCraft days, and seeing Team Liquid kind of foster that. They fostered esports more so than Blizzard in those days, I think. And they still continue to at their website, teamliquid.com. Or is it net? I don't know. Check it out. Got good forums there. And the Korean team, MVP Phoenix, ironically, in a weird way, Team Liquid is facing them. And I don't know. They are really, really good, Team Liquid. And so are MVP. But Liquid just really impressed me, So we'll see.
I love that matchup, and I got to call it out. Last week I told you boys not to sleep on MVP. I told you this team shows
sleep on like sleep around on them. We're in a relationship with them.
Oh Jesus!
Or what?
No,
sleep on them?
No. Please God, you tell me you've heard the term "don't sleep on them."
I've never heard that term. Maybe it's because I'm a simple country folk.
You mountain men.
Yeah, we don't like
you only know 100 different words for the term rock.
Yep.
You're like the Eskimos, but no, this don't sleep on it. Meaning like that's a team you don't want to underestimate because they've done incredibly well in the past, and they're proving.
You don't want to sleep around on them because they'll kick your asses, right? Is kind of
that's right. Yeah, you can't cheat on them. That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, I just keep rephrasing your description to what my initial guess was. That's what us mountain folks do.
It's the doctor, man. The doctor's getting to your fucking head.
I'm shaking all the time. I need some
doctor. You need to see a real doctor about this.
Hey, he'll just prescribe me some Docta.
Oh my God.
That's what I'll hear. But there's a lot of good games coming up here. A lot of Team Empire versus Seeker. That's going to be an interesting game too. I mean, these brackets are going to give us a good indication of where these teams stand, much better than the groups did. I mean, if Team Liquid can beat MVP or it's a huge thing, then they have a good chance of taking the tournament, right? If OG do the same with Navi, the same. I mean, Newbie with Digital Chaos. Yeah, I mean, all these are going to be really good indicator matches of where these teams stand and who will filter out. Help me get these brackets down, though. So you lose, you go directly down to losers, but if you lose in the losers, you're out?
Yep. It's double elimination, and if you're in the lower bracket, you lose, and you're done.
So any of these people that are going to play in the losers bracket tomorrow or tonight and tomorrow,
do or die.
Seriously, so they're just out.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's why you really like the whole notion of, oh well, maybe they wanted to go in the lower bracket. No, 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 no.
They're one
They're
step from
going
being
into a
eliminated. Yeah.
they're in a best of one right now. If they lose one game, they are done. They're in last place at the Manila Major. It's over.
Oh, so they're
You
just
know?
making the first round of lower bracket is a best of one. Jesus,
Yeah. Which I think they've
that's
done
interesting.
before. Yeah,
Yeah,
the group stages they call GSL style because that's how the GSL used to do it. And in StarCraft, they did these little groups and they'd kind of play them
because
out in
GSL
like
had
a little tournament.
32 players, didn't they?
I think so. They had
And
something
they'd
like
narrow
that.
it down to 16 or 8 even for the season. After, yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
So that's the kind of format this is, and I personally like the format. I think
Me
it's
too.
really cool. But speaking of kind of format and tournament organizing things like that, what do you think about the production? I know we've talked a lot about the games themselves and the competition and things like that, but what about all the stuff outside of it? Have you picked up on any of the Slacks interviews, the Maymays? Have you seen any of the productions, the transitions,
I've
things
seen a
like that?
lot of what Slacks has done, and I really like his interviews. I like what he's doing. It's very cool to see people that were doing those interviews a couple years ago, like Shiver and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
has she been at this tournament? I haven't seen her yet.
I don't know. I don't think she's at
So
this
maybe it's
one.
a bad example, but like she's kind of moved to like the hostess position, whereas she was doing that role. So maybe Slacks will move up in time, and people will be able to see him for what he is. You know, like I don't know. I think he has a lot to add past the whole humor thing. You know, I think he actually is a really sharp guy that's kind of gotten typecasted into being like the village idiot or something. But his interviews have been really good and informative while still creating that humor. So I'm really glad that he's there.
Yeah, I think seeing Slacks do the interviews is kind of just like the perfect example of what I think a lot of people, I think even Cyphus and Roland included, is when they were talking about the Shanghai and they were complaining about, or not they in particular, but people were complaining about Too Good and the way he was. I think you're seeing Slacks and you're seeing his personality come out, and you're seeing that he's still keeping it light and fresh, but he's doing it. You know that he's toning it down in the right way, right? He's still professional, but he still has fun with these guys, and he's finding the right balance of that quote unquote professionalism while also maintaining that kind of level of humor and fun kind of silliness that makes him so lovable and really got him to where he is now. So it's really cool to see him do what he's doing, and like you said, the production has been pretty damn good. There's a couple of
Incredible.
weird things about it though, right?
They
Did you?
split attention a little too much sometimes, where there'll be
Yeah.
something great going on, and they'll be like, "But look at this over here in this lane." You know, like it's sensory overload when the game's already sensory overload in
When they
some
do
team
that
fights.
tri-lane camera thing
Yeah,
at the start
it's
of the
just a
game,
bit
I
much.
really don't like that. Like I've played this game for years, and even I find it a little visually jarring to try and keep up with three lanes at the same time on a split
I mean,
camera
that's why we
diagonal.
have stats with like last hits and stuff, and that's one of my bigger criticisms is like they leave it on net worth so much that they're like they'll go and like flash last hits every once in a while, but like I'd like to know like stats being cycled through more. You know what I mean? Like without just being told. Like show me all the stats rotating, and I know I can do that in the Dota client, but I'm lazy. Blah, do it for me.
Wah.
Yeah, exactly. But all of it has been really good. Like it's a huge a step up from a perfect world or whatever. And from what I'm hearing from the teams, it's a lot better too. So we have our boy Jack over there, which is kind of why we're KBBQ is Jack, and he's doing translation for Chinese teams as he usually does. And so we're kind of trying to pick up and do a more pro oriented show.
He's also on the panel, the Chinese panel as well. I mean, dude is making some shit happen.
Yeah,
So
he's a very smart guy. Check into him. Yeah, like check him out. He's working his ass off over there. So we'll be picking up some of the pro slack through the Manila Majors. We're thinking about getting a panel together to kind of handle the tournament as it goes along. You guys will know what happens, during these initial games. So I kind of wish we hadn't told you when we recorded it, so we can just be like, that liquid, we could just like tell you who wins, but like it could be
that
wrong.
was a game.
Yeah, it sure was a game. But one thing about this tournament is it looks like it's going to show us a great kind of skill assessment of everyone just in the first rounds. And the weaker teams will be gone. And I think you have some... EG should be able to beat Vici Gaming Reborn. You know what I mean? Like you have some things that aren't maybe as obvious that how it will go, but we'll see. It's shaping up to be a very fascinating tournament.
Yeah, I think the production's going to be fantastic so far. Everything has looked really good. Right now we're actually seeing the main event as it's happening. The light show, the camera work, everything looks really solid. So I think Valve has definitely given the reins over to the right production team this time around, and I think they've certainly learned their lesson in terms of when they can and when they can't be quite as hands off, and which company to move forward with. So I'm really excited to see just kind of what the LAN element of the vibe is going to be. I mean, the Filipino fans are rabid over there. I mean, I think you and I both caught a bit of the ESL One Manila tournament that went on there, and man, those dudes show up. Like that is a really cool fan base, and I think that's going to be one of the things I just wanted to highlight kind of before we put a wrap on what this is. But just look out for these fans, because they have shown that they are some fantastic fans of Dota 2, and they're really well-educated fans, it seems, too.
Yeah.
So
it's fantastic to see that. And I know I give Valve a lot of shit on this show sometimes, but the fact that you're getting majors and stuff out there around the world and not just keeping it in America is really, really cool. It's showing the world that this is just a world thing. This isn't a USA thing. This isn't a European thing. This isn't a Chinese thing. It's everybody, man. Everyone's or Street Fighter. You know how Street Fighter would get up at World Warrior? That's what this is in real life. So that's how I think of it. It's World Warrior tournament, man. Let's see who's the best. NA isn't looking good, but I'll still cheer for anybody,
yeah,
it's a fascinating world out there for Dota right now. So we'll be talking about it as the tournament progresses. We're still going to do a bit of our series on team building, but with it being so topical to do Manila Major stuff, that's what we're going to do for a while. We're going to cover an item for the day. So Blue, do you have any other closing thoughts? I mean, I know those were kind of your closing thoughts, but anything else before we move on to our item of the day?
I am hype. Hype is me. I am excited.
Me too. So much good Dota.
I'm a fan of Toby, so I can't speak for the rest of the .p group, but I'm a fan of Toby.
Sometimes I just have no idea what he's saying. it's a black hole. He's you hear one word and but it hypes you. Does it hype you? Yes, it does. He's a good hype man.
It does. He is the best. And you know what? Honestly, I would never want to watch him do an online qualifier tournament, but in a LAN setting, oh my God, that dude feeds off the crowd, and it's just like a whirlwind of energy, and I just get swept up in it. So I just wanted to throw that one out there.
Fantastic.
Shout out
to our boy Toby, undoubtedly a listener because he listens to good shit. So moving on, item of the show. Hurricane Pike. We've been handling kind of the new items as they come along, their implications, where they fit into the game, what you use to build them, and I guess really why you would build them. I have not had the pleasure of building a Hurricane Pike. I thought it was really silly hearing it come out because it combined two items I never thought would ever be combined, which is the Force Staff and the Dragon Talon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've never even built a Talon. I built some Force Staffs for funsies.
Lance.
Dragon Lance, that's right. What's the Talon thing?
Iron Talon.
Iron Talon, that's right. So Dragon Lance, the thing that increases your the lengths on your attack, the distance range on your range on your attacks. So Blue, what do you think about this item? I mean, it has some weird implications to it from the push and the guaranteed attacks. It just seemed like it would be a little bit rife for abuse and not particularly balanced, but I haven't seen anything that would make me believe it's unbalanced or anything. What do you think?
So for me, it's one of those items that, you see it, and when it works, it is incredible. You're like, how is this even a balanced item? But then that only happens in 10% of your fights. There's some heroes that have some very obvious synergy with it. Enchantress is probably the one that comes to mind most, and of course, she's the hero with the that buys it the most out of any hero in Dota right now.
Because she already gets the Dragon Lance or whatever
Yeah, the
So
Dragonlance, which really makes her damage output even better, gives her some tankiness, and the attack range is a big thing for that. And then Force Staff is nice just because it offers a little bit of regen, a little more intelligence, just gives a little bit of everything that's really nice. And being able to combine those two items for the recipe, which is just 250, I mean it's just a really good value item. But unlike all the other heroes, it's so incredibly situational. Like you see it sometimes on Drow. I've seen it on Silencer a couple times, and it was pretty effective then. But I guess before we talk about the heroes that it's good on, maybe we just kind of review exactly what Hurricane Pike does.
yeah.
Do you want to cover that?
Yep. So Hurricane Pike, like Blue says, comes from, or I said before Blue, it comes from the Force Staff and the Dragonlance. It pushes you away and your enemy away 450 units. Oh, no, you have an ally push distance of 600. So you are pushed away 600, the enemy's pushed away 450. And after this, you can land how many consecutive attacks? 4 consecutive attacks?
For maximum of 5 seconds.
Yeah, for a maximum of 5 seconds, you can have 4 unrestricted attacks on your enemy, depending, range be damned, pretty much. So if you were to even port out, I remember seeing something that made me thought the item would be abused with Enchantress. Like, she would cast it and then port, and then throw the 4 things from base, pretty much killing the person no matter what, because the distance on her attacks were so far, and with impetus or whatever, it increased the damage so much. So on top of this, with the Hurricane Pike, you also get increased attack range on ranged heroes. So the Dragonlance is still in effect. It doesn't take that away at all. This can be blocked by BKB or Lincolns. So keep that in mind. If someone
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Lincolns will pop this and not push the Hurricane Force through. And the BKB protects it as well. So it's like Orchid and all those other items that are point to click. I think Force Staff works the same way, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it does. I was thinking more about sorry, I was thinking more about the fact that if I turned BKB on after the fact, like say I got pushed, if I turn BKB on, I wonder what the interaction is.
I think
I wouldn't
would
think
go
it
through.
would get rid of it.
Yeah,
but
I think it would go through because the spell was already technically cast, right? And so then the next bit would be the physical damage. If it was Impetus or something that was a spell attack that could be blocked by spell immunity, when those attacks come through, what was on the attack would not go through if it could be blocked by spell immune, however. But the physical damage would, right? I assume that's how it would work.
Yeah, that's always those weird interactions. Like, what does BKB purge as opposed to what does it just do to prevent other things from being added on after the fact? That's always a weird one for me. But so yeah, kind of going back to who really would buy this thing, because at the end of the day, it still costs a little over 4,300 gold.
It's something that they've made so expensive that you don't. It's not just a shits and giggles item. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's the same with the thorn, the blood thorn. It's like it's not something that you're just going to be able to get and like giggle about. It's a late game item, so the abuse hasn't been seen yet, right? But sorry, go on.
Wazoo, what would you buy and giggle about? Tell me an item you would buy and giggle about. I want to hear this.
Force Staff. Like, I remember. Okay, this is like another story. I have definite like Dota trauma. Like within my first 100 games, someone was bitching at me for playing Pudge because I missed every hook, and like I went to get a rune, and he Force Staffed me up onto a cliff, and then kept the courier away from me with the TP, and just like pretty much laughed and heckled me for like 20 minutes, and I was just like, stop it. But that's like a funny giggles item. You know what I mean? Like you can pick up a Force Staff for just like a couple bits of money, and like that there you have a Force Staff. You know what I mean? With this item, you need to dedicate a build to this kind of item, so it's not something you're going to see in every game, is what I mean, or could possibly ever see in any game. So it's not just a shits and giggles item. It's something you really got to dedicate to and have a hero that it works on. And
you know what I was thinking was, I'm just like I'm trying to theory craft on who I would really get this item on, because it's so not popular. It's the 113th most popular item according to Dota Buff, which means it's not that popular, right? Like it's just not picked that much. It's still a really new item.
Got to be an arranged hero,
how
so
it fits.
That cuts it down quite a bit, right? So
yeah, that's true. And you got to be a right clicker. That also cuts it down. You got to
probably already want to build Dragon Talon, so that cuts it down even further to someone like Sniper, Drow, ranged heroes that don't want to get
Yeah.
jumped on pretty much that can use this to push them away and get some
Kite.
hits in. Yeah, kite.
Yeah, you want a kite. It's weird because you can get it for two reasons, both of which are the kind of the opposite of each other. Is if you don't want to get kited and you're a quote unquote ranged hero like you are with TA and Luna, like you maybe want to get the item for that reason. But if you're a hero who wants to kite people, you could also get it, right? It's just a weird interaction the way that works.
It lets you get hits in on a melee hero who would jump on you pretty much.
Right. It works for both those reasons, is what I mean.
It's interesting. And it's two items you never thought would be combined. An int item and Dragon Talon is like a agility item.
It's agility and strength. It's a mix of the two.
So it's interesting hybrid items. I like what they're doing. It's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's almost got the same kind of stats as a like an Ags or something, which is not really stat efficient, but it does give a nice little boost to all the stats, which is nice, especially if you're one of those squishy heroes that wants to tank up a little bit. I could see this working on Klinks if he wants to kite out some of those kind of really in meta, strength heroes like a life stealer or an alchemist or something, and you just want to keep them away. I could see that working out for them. I would love to try this item on Weaver, to be honest. Maybe not as a first item. Maybe you just get the Dragonlance and then you go for like a Deso and Lincoln's. But maybe if you go back for the Pike, if you find that you're getting jumped on a lot, I think that would be cool to see.
Yeah, I like it. I like it in those. It still has some abilities where it could be built on other people. I don't think we've seen anyone build it popularly on a Weaver or anything like that, but it could be useful for those like kind of weaker heroes that just need to make some distance and get away. So it works. Exactly. It works for both reasons. I like that. It's a hybrid item. I didn't mention earlier, but the bonus attack range on this is the Hurricane Pike is the same as the Talon at 130. So there's no increase there or anything, but you do get the Hurricane Force ability and all that. So it gives it a bit more oomph, And I think Roland predicted on our show a while ago that Dragon Talon was going to build into something, and we shot him down, and we're just like, you're an idiot. And then it happened like 2 weeks later. Yeah. He came in and was like, I'm Nostradamus, dude. And it's like, whatever, God. Shut up.
Yeah, but cue up the highlights video of all the different things he made predictions on.
Seriously, he picks the one. It's like when you're 1 in 90, like you're not Nostradamus, you're just any other schmo.
Even a broken clock is right, sometimes, right?
I'll tell him that. But that wraps up our item discussion. I think it's we've given you kind of something to think about when you would build it. Be the guy that builds it effectively and not the guy that just builds it for the trollies, for the trollolols. And we will see that item, I'm sure, build into something. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of these new items being used, but maybe we will in this tournament. So we'll keep our eyes out open for that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Like, we have seen a lot of Enchantress, and I think I've seen Hurricane Pike. I think we definitely saw it out of Misery in that massive 90-minute game against Na'Vi.
Oh, that's right.
That was pretty cool to see. But yeah, we don't really see Hurricane Pike used a lot.
It's not like huge playmaker item, which is I think why it gets glossed over some. Like you're never like, oh, and he's gonna wind up the Hurricane Pike. It's just like 4 shots that go in. And that's it. You see the push, and that's it. It's about as effective as 2 4 staffs, and then you get some free hits. So they try to sweeten the pot. I like it.
Yeah, but it's a cute little item.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting wizard staff, but or a pikey staffy thingy, whatever it is. It doesn't stab, but it's a pike. I don't know. It's weird.
Pointy thing.
Exactly. But we've kind of taken our time. There's Dota to watch, everybody. So it is time for so long. Blue, where can people reach you, my friend?
You can find me. You can find me at Twitter at .p_MrBlue on Twitter. You can find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/.ptv1. If you aren't interested in the Manila Major and you want to watch Ursi rage at his team Hakuna Marana, they're actually streaming pretty often, pretty frequently, their team practices and their kind of 5-stack.
Who's all on that team? Do you know?
I know Fafnir is, Proud is, Ursi is, I think it's also Flub, and I want to say Sultan the Slayer, who I don't really know Sultan very much, but I mean, Flub's a great guy. I love queuing up with him, and all the other guys, they're really fun to watch, and trying to see them win some matches without Proud or Ursi, raging quietly or not quietly, is always fun to watch. So if you want to catch that, you can find the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/.ptv for that, and also to see our new in-house time, which is, I believe, Wednesday at, is it 9 Eastern or 8 Eastern?
9 Eastern. So show up at 9 Eastern. There will be a new night for this because we were having trouble getting people coming in on the weekends. I mean, we could still fill some lobbies, but not to the same level. So come check us out in the middle of the week, and we'll see how that goes from there. Anybody and everybody's welcome. So, anything else you got to add, Blue?
That's it. If you wanna, hit up my Twitter if you want to, shove your predictions in my face.
Or how he was wrong, or whatever,
or if you want to shove the team secret predictions down your throat. How can they find you, Wazoo?
They can find me at .p_Wazoo. Check us out on Twitter at .p_show for the official show. You can tweet us anything. You can always email us at defenseofthepatients@gmail.com. And come to the in-houses, guys. Get involved. There's so many people we get emails from where it's like, I'd like to get involved, but I don't know. Is now a good time? It's like, there is never a good time but now. Anybody's welcome. Come and talk to us. Add us on Steam. You can find us somehow. Find us through the .p Steam group. That's why the community's there, so you guys can utilize it. So,
hold on, the way you phrased that was, was so funny. You're like, people ask, is it a good time? And you're like, well, there's never a good time but now.
No, some people are like, is this
always a good time?
They think they're going to ruin in-houses or something by them showing up. But it's like, no, I play. So obviously we have some really bad players and people that lose lots of games and stuff. Like, don't ever worry about it. It's just a time to come and hang out and get to know people. So there's never a good time except for now. Like, boom. And with that being said, thank you guys for joining us. We're going to be covering the Manila Major while KBBQ, his show is kind of off while he's doing the whole translation being a badass thing over in Manila. So tune in to us, guys. Participate with us on Twitter. Let us know how you're enjoying the show experience and get involved. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We love doing the show. We love you. And remember, stay hard and stay classy.